Hello, my gardening friends. Today I would like to share with you an overview of my native plant gardens, a bit of a history of how I got started with native plant gardening, and some tips and resources that you might find useful in your native plant gardening journey as well. As I'm chatting, I'll be sharing videos and pictures of my gardens and featuring many of the native plants that I have in my gardens as well. I'm in Southwestern Ontario in Canada, and I started gardening many years ago. But I only really discovered native plants about 5 years ago. I was researching a new plant that was shared with me to make sure that I met its needs, as I do for all new plants in my gardens. And this plant was obedient plant, and it was most certainly my gateway plant into native plant gardening. I saw pollinators flock to this plant like nothing I've seen before in the garden. It was like a light bulb went off in my brain. I thought that I was doing good by planting any plants without rhyme or reason, but I quickly discovered the importance of native plants in particular and how the plants that I chose for my gardens could help support the local ecosystem and particularly pollinators that we all know are in decline. And this quickly became a passion of mine pretty much overnight. So now, 5 years later, I have over 70 different species of native plants in my gardens, and that collection is growing every season, no pun intended. My goal is to start small and eventually have mostly native plants in my gardens over time. I'm particularly proud of my newest shade garden, where I have about 90% native plants. I also have decomposing logs, which I think not only add to the biodiversity in the garden, but also add to the aesthetic as well. And I have a space at the back where I lay old stems for pollinators and other critters to make homes. I start many of my plants from seed, and this kind of growth takes time. Some of my plants have taken years before I even see the first bloom. In time, I will remove more and more of the non-native plants in my gardens as the native species get more established and flourish. I'm also doing my best to learn. There's a lot to learn when it comes to native plant gardening. It's like each plant has its own recipe card, and I have to figure out the best methods to keep them happy, individually, as a collective, and in balance with the needs of my life and family. I completed my Pollinator Stewardship certification from Pollinator Partnership Canada, and I learned so much about pollinators, creating pollinator habitat, and ensuring that I have blooms and host plants to serve pollinators in all stages of development. I would definitely recommend this program for anyone interested in learning more about building back biodiversity and supporting pollinators in your gardens. I do my best to share what I'm learning by documenting my native plant gardens monthly and sharing these tours on YouTube to help people see how these plants develop over time, to show how this can be done in a suburban garden context, and to help people plan their garden design, knowing how these plants look throughout the seasons. So there you have it. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. And I hope that this shows that you can start small, see impacts almost immediately, and keep growing as you go. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you might be interested in starting or expanding a native plant garden in your space as well.